Hey guys, Extus here, and welcome to the show. So, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private Facebook community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, be sure to come join us. We definitely love to have you. And this community, as you know, is put together specifically for coaches, consultants, service providers who are serious about getting consistent high ticket clients to their businesses and scaling to that six and that seven figure level. So with that being said, I have my guest here today, Tanya Thorwall. Hey, Tanya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Tanya, tell us, what is it that you do?
So, in a nutshell, it's just restructuring and reorganizing businesses.
Hmm.
And so that's the title. That's the quick intro to it. And then the process behind it is I focus on four areas. And the first one is going to be your accounting, your financials for your business. And a lot of people kind of are hesitant about it, but there's a method to the madness. What we do is we dive into your P&L because a lot of times what business owners don't do is they don't print out a detailed P&L. What I mean by that is looking at all the transactions. So you see your expense and that's a total amount, but you're not looking at all the transactions. So what we do is we print out your P&L in detail for the prior 2 years because people think of accounting and they're very hesitant about it, but it's historical data and it's writing the history of your company. It's writing the history of who you are in its essence. So we want to make sure that it's being done to your standards, to the way you are, how you want to be projected. Because when you create a business, and some people don't realize this, but a business is designed, when you look at the legal terms and everything, it's designed to outlive you. So if your business is going to be sold later on down the road or anything like that, wouldn't you want the history of it to be a reflection of who you are as a person? But on that point, it's also how do we make sure you are being developed as a leader at the same time? So we can dive into your financials, we dive into your accounting, we look at the expenses. Do we take out certain expenses? Do we add on certain expenses? Are you having those conversations with your CPA, how you should do your tax planning, your estate planning, add expenses, reduce expenses? We will have that huge conversation, really robust, which a lot of business owners don't tend to do. And then once we get off of that nitty gritty, that really uncomfortable situation for some, we dive into operations because now you know where your pennies are going. So then now we have a flow of, are you being efficient? Are you being effective? And when you do your operations, it goes hand in hand with your human resources. So now you're going to start looking at your team. Are you developing your team? Can your team be developed? Can it grow with you? And in that whole process, the last part is leadership development. But honestly, we're probably in your subconscious working on your leadership development while we're going through those three main phases in your company. Because if you put in the work from the very beginning, you're going to see the results 12 months down the road, 6 months down the road, however long we decide to engage with each other. And it's for me, it's a fun process. I love accounting. I'm a nerd when it comes to numbers. But to me, because it's more of, I see accounting as history, and some people don't see it that way. They think it's math, and they think like, I don't want to touch it, I don't want to deal with it, give it to somebody else. But it's when I talk to a lot of students at universities, and I tell them, look, accounting's like this. When you think about it, because it's not just taxes, there's so much more to it. It's looking at a problem, writing down the solution, or writing down how you're going to solve it in words, then creating your solution. So you're writing out your problem in words, and then your equal sign, and then your solution, and then you're just putting in the numbers in that place. And then when people realize, oh, that's how it is, that's true problem solving, if you break it down into those steps. And so when business owners realize that's what I need to do, okay. And then we start seeing changes, we start seeing the robust, and we start seeing what you really want your business to be and how you really want to be as a person. And so it's a really, for me, it's a fun process. For some people, it's kind of painful, but it's something that I enjoy doing. So, and I was doing it for work, and then I decided to branch out on my own because I knew it could be more effective this way. So.
Yeah. So I guess the question becomes, what got you into accounts in the first place? What got you to where? What was your first experience with saying, okay, this is what I want to do?
I accidentally fell into accounting. So my first degrees are in international development and international finance from the University of St. Thomas in Houston. And then my dad, owns a commercial construction company, and he was just kind of like, help me out once in a while. And so he wanted me to just do his books. And I said, well, I don't have any accounting background. So he's like, go get another degree. So I figured, well, why not? It doesn't hurt to get another degree. And so I was taking just additional classes for fun. And I had this amazing professor who explained accounting exactly how I just did, that it's a story, that this is how you get to write a story. And I've always been a numbers person. I've always loved math as a child. Did AP calculus in high school and, took all these stats class in college. I just loved math. But when you can do a story with numbers, that's what really intrigued me. And I've always had an operational background. I've always had a leadership management background. So it was just kind of just fell into my lap, essentially. And then afterwards, I did family office accounting for some high net worth individuals out of Houston. And I managed an insurance agency. And then I went back into construction and restructured a whole construction company too. So I enjoyed all the jobs that I've had, but I realized that I could be much more effective on my own, working with somebody instead of having to work for somebody. So that's how I ended up wanting to tailor my business the process that I explained. So
yeah, that is so fascinating. Yeah, and the way you describe accounting, because one thing you said, accounting is telling the story in numbers. I've never really thought about it that way, but that's very, very interesting. And you said you learned that from your professor. That's how you your first experience.
Well, that's how she, it was a one-on-one conversation. And, I was going through something and I just kind of went to her and I vented a little bit because I had that trust with her. And she said, no, she goes, this is an amazing career. She goes, you're going to be able to tell stories and tell the history of people in ways that nobody else can, because I'm naturally a storyteller. I talk a lot with my hands, as you can tell. She goes, and you've just got this energy to you. She goes, so if you're able to break down financial statements and explain to people, this is why you do this, and explain, she goes, it's going to be really robust for you. And that was just something that clicked, and it's always stuck to me. And so that was like, if I have to help anybody, if I have to break down financial statements, whether it's a small business or a Fortune 500, Coca-Cola statements, I'm going to be able to explain it in terms that everybody's going to understand. And so that's kind of how it happened. And that's how I want to make it fun for everybody, because it could be such a daunting task when really it's not. It's just having to change your thought process a bit.
Yeah, perfect. Now, the question now becomes, how do you work with your clients? What's the process? What's the typical engagement looks like for you? Is it a virtual engagement? Is it in person? How do you typically work with clients?
So, well, now with the virus, everything's virtual. I'm an extroverted person, so I do like being face to face. But where I'm located, I'm in the South area of Texas, and so a lot of times it's virtual meetings. If I need to travel to you, I will travel to you. So it's a combination. It's a hybrid, because there's some things where it's not really going to be worth for you to fly me out there and sit at your desk. And I'll be very honest with you. I'm very cost conscious, because I am my own boss. I own my own company. So I know where the expenses are. So for some of it, it's going to be like, you know what? We don't need to meet in person. These need to be virtual meetings, but you need to show up with whatever homework was assigned to you, or you need to be able to give me certain things in a timely manner, because that's the only way we're going to move forward and make sure that you get the information that you want, and we're being completely honest with each other. So I genuinely have an interest to see people succeed. I genuinely have an interest to develop people and make businesses better, because I think there's a lot of good in the world. And I think a lot of people who go into business have that good in them. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to show up to do the work for you, I hope you show up to do the work with me as well. And then we move forward that way. So, but it's always about what's going to be the best situation, what's going to be the best outcome for you. And that means I have to be there to make sure you're doing it, holding your hand. We'll do that process. But if you can show up and do it virtually, then let's do it virtually. So I try to tailor it. And then we also do group discussions where it's there's 3 or 4 clients that are together. They're all in the similar industry, and it's more of a kind of, I guess, like a classroom setting, but it's not a classroom setting. And we review their P&Ls. I'll review their P&Ls before we meet, and then I'll say, this is what you all have in common, and this is what you guys need to change. And then we'll individualize it as it goes. So there's 2 methods. It really just depends if you're wanting to learn more how to do it on your own, or if you need to be handheld. Those would be the 2 options.
Yeah, that is so powerful, because what you said, you work with clients in a group type of setting. where it's clients where there's maybe similar industries or something where you get them together and have them go through a group process. I know in my business we do something very, very similar. And one of the things I found is that once a group setting is so powerful to learn and to get better experience, because I found that most individuals who do try to do something is either just them and a mentor, them and someone helping, and they have no context for what
Mm-hmm.
things that they don't know that they don't know are. But when you're in a group setting, that opens up so much opportunity to learn so much more. So is it something with the group setting? How did you come up with that? Is that something you strategically said you're going to do, or how did you decide to do group settings?
No, so I do a lot of professional volunteerism with the IMA, which is the Institute of Managerial Accountants. And I think I've gotten more from them than I've given to them. Just an amazing, amazing organization. I do have a lot of leadership roles within that organization too. But what I've noticed is when we have, our quarterly council meetings or anything of that nature, and we're all discussing things, it was just much more engaged because it's that level of professionalism. It's that level that we've all been in our career. And so it's when you're around like-minded individuals, when you're around like-minded people who are trying to excel at the same point, nobody's really there to showboat. Everybody's there to really learn, and they're going to be more exposed. And so for me, it just clicked where I was like, I can do this volunteering, and I'm thinking maybe I'll get something out of it, maybe I won't. What if we were to apply to people who really do want to get something out of it? Because it's one thing, it's kind of like a child, or it's, sometimes your mom or your dad will tell you something and you're like, whatever. And so then, but somebody else will tell you it and you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes that happens with coaches and with consultants. And, I know I've said a couple of things before where my clients were like, no, I don't know about that. But then they heard it from somebody else and they were like, oh, she was actually right about it. Let's go ahead and move forward with it. And so that group setting allows for that. It just allows to get rid of the doubt is really what it does, because it allows people to say, okay, all right, this is working. This is going to move us in the right direction. So it just confirms a lot of the positivity that we try to move forward with.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I just love that so much because I know it has such a great impact on not just my business, but my clients' businesses as well too. Because I found that because with my realm, what I help people do is ultimately um, coaches, consultants just figure out the financial aspect of their businesses, because most of them come in, they've been like struggling for years and years, and they don't even really believe they could grow anymore. And when they come in as a group, because with our clients, we work with them in different points. Some are like generating 20,000 per month, some are just getting started, all these different things. And most of the new individuals, I realize for them, there's just, when they come in, it's like there's no true possibility of what's possible. But once they get into the group and hear different experiences of different people at different points and see what they're doing, all of a sudden their world just expands. So I love that so much with what you just said here. Now, another thing, when I listened to what you talked about with your business, you mentioned in terms of accounting, because when we met, I thought you were just about accounting, but it seems like your process goes way, way deeper. You mentioned not only do you do the accounting, you help with operations as well too, and leadership development. Like how is that normally how an accountant or someone who does accounting works, or is it a process you've kind of uniquely put together?
So accountants, so there's only 1.3 million people in the United States that are true accountants, and less than half of that are actual CPAs. And when you look at it, when people think CPAs, they think they're tax people. They think they're just doing taxes. Well, there's actually more tax professionals out there that are not CPAs. And you have more CPAs that are actually in the private industry, meaning that they're actually working for companies. We start off in tax just because that's the natural realm, but honestly, none of us really like doing it. It's not fun at all. And so what happens is when you see like CEOs, maybe even CFOs, COOs, sometimes they have that accounting background because accounting just makes you become a natural problem solver. And so there's a wide career in it. And there's a lot of people who end up falling. I've done talks to the Society of HR Managers before, and I had a person in the group that was a prior accountant. She was like, yeah, she goes, it made the sense for me to jump into from accounting to HR, because what people don't realize, and when we talk about the P&L sheet, what's the biggest expense on your profit and loss sheet? Your payroll.
Mm-hmm.
So if we know about your payroll and we see you're spending X amount of money in your labor, if you're in construction, for example, and then we break it down into projects, and we break it down to cost accounting, and we look at, hey, this is, and we look at our profit margins, and we're noticing that our profit margins are dropping for whatever reason, or we notice that when we have a certain group of individuals that are working on a project, it doesn't hit that 20, 30% mark, it's only hitting 15 to 20%. So now you're diving into, okay, it's not a cost issue, but it's a production issue and it's a personnel issue. So what do we do at that point? So then that's when human resources becomes a part of it, because it's like, are we hiring from the right place? Are we looking at the right talent pool? Do we need to switch it up a bit? Is it our training? What's going on? And that's where a lot of people don't make the connections. That's where a lot of people don't see the breakdown. So it's like, I start with accounting because that's going to be your total cost, but it has there's so many, it's like an onion. Once you start peeling the layers, you get to it and you get to it. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that accounting is not just crunching numbers. You're doing much more analysis. You're diving into the data, literally. You're pulling it apart and you're trying to see where did these numbers come from? How did I develop them? And so that's how operations, will feed into accounting, and operations feeds into HR in a lot of ways. So, because we also have to make sure if our employees are healthy, if our employees are safe, if they have the proper equipment, if they are getting enough time off, that has a huge effect on their performance. And your performance equates to revenue. So it all ties in a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so accounting is the financials is the biggest beast, and it's the scariest beast. But it's really a teddy bear when you start working with it, I promise.
Mm-hmm. Why do you say it's the scariest beast in a sense?
Because a lot of times people don't know what to ask their tax professional. They don't know how that conversation should look like with their bookkeeper. They don't know I'll give you an example. A lot of times also people will just trust the people that are doing their numbers and their bookkeeping and all that stuff. They may not have access to their bank accounts. They may not be able to write the checks, but they've got an ability to manipulate your vendors and your customers and your charts of accounts. And I'll give you an example. There's a gentleman that does some real estate in Indianapolis. He's got a huge production, and he had his bookkeeper steal almost a little over $300,000 over a time period of 7 years. Wow. And this was a woman that asked him to walk her down the aisle because she felt that he was almost a father figure to her, and then asked him to be the godfather to his daughter. And so, and it's kind of like, and then it happens quite often. It's even happened within my family. And so it's one of those where you trust people with the bookkeeping. And so you don't know how to have the conversations. You don't know how to dive in there and do the research in your own numbers and to say, where is this coming from? Why is this happening? Or anything of that nature. And it allows you to have better control of your business, because if you start walking away from your financials and you stop putting those expectations on your employees, it can run away from you, as I just talked about in that example. So it becomes, and a lot of times people just are scared of it. They're just kind of like, I see where the revenues and the expenses, and I'm happy with the end result. I'm happy taking this amount home, so I'm good. I don't really need to worry about it too much. But it's if you're not a data-driven person, if you're not an analytical person, it's hard to follow through sometimes. So that's why we try to break it down and make it more fun. And when we break it down and we say, this is how it's affecting your operations and your HR, automatically that leader within you is going to wake up and it's going to realize, I do need to make a change. I need to start showing up a little bit more in my business. And so the leadership development is kind of in the background, but it's being done at the same time.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's another thing you said that really stood out to me here. With what your response was, people don't know the right questions to ask. And I know in my industry it's the same thing as well too. Because as I work with my own clients, coaches, consultants, I notice most of them come in because what we help them do is get consistent high-ticket clients to their businesses. And I notice when the majority of them come in saying, okay, what do I do? The questions they ask are typically not the right questions. They might ask questions like, well, where do I go to get leads, or where do I go to get the clients? And I believe that there's a much deeper understanding of what questions need to be asked first and what problems need to be solved first before we ever get into those types of things. So when it comes to you, in terms of your clients, what questions do you feel like aren't being asked, or what questions do you feel like they don't really know they should ask that they should be asking? What would you say? Do you have any of these questions you could share with us?
So I'm a big fan of reverse engineering things. And so a lot of times I ask them, okay, how much money do you want to have after tax?
Mm-hmm.
And, they'll, okay, I want to have, we'll say $250,000, for example. Just, I want to take $250,000 after tax home. Okay. So how much revenue do you need to bake in your business? How many expenses can you have? And expenses, and what I mean by not just showing on your P&L and saying, oh, this is going to be my net profit. No, no, no. What I'm talking about, when I'm talking about expenses, I'm talking about what expenses, because you can have meals and entertainment in there, but only 50% of that can be written off, and sometimes 0% can be written off. So that, your net income or your net profit is not going to be as high as you think it is. It actually may be lower or higher. So we start diving into the expenses, and it's like, which of these expenses are going to benefit you within your taxes? How is that going to flow into your 1120 or to your 1040? How is this, what expenses are you adding into your business that are going to have a direct impact on you? Mm-hmm. And when you start thinking it that way, then you're like, that's when it becomes, okay, it's not just, profit and expenses, it's tax planning, it's estate planning. I'll give you an example. Trump passed in his tax cut laws. So the standard deduction out of your single is $12,200. And so clients, if they have a corporation or they're an LLC, what I ask them is, do you have the bandwidth? Do you have the ability to put your child on your payroll? And they're like, well, why would I want to put my kid on there? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why? Well, here's the thing. You can pay your child up to $12,200 and they're going to pay 0 on taxes. That's the standard deduction, versus when it was only $6,000 before, when it made sense. But now that it's at $12,200, instead of giving the money to the kids, why don't you open up a Roth IRA account for them, or an IRA account, or whatever the case is? And so for the next 5 years now, until 2025, when that thing expires, you're building their wealth. You're building their legacy. You're helping them build your legacy. You're helping them build something to attain for. Because there's a lot of things that you can do with a retirement plan. You can roll it into a qualified retirement pension, a QRP, and then what happens is that you can take a loan up to 50% up against that value. And then if you want to do real estate investment, if you want to, invest in whatever you want to, there's just so many things that you can do. But if you plan it right, that's an additional expense into your business. Yeah, but you can justify it because this is what you're doing to build your wealth and your family's legacy. So what I do sometimes with my kids when they pop in, like, I'm like, well, they're on, they're going to get paid a little bit because it's a marketing expense, like, it's not just because, but have them be involved in the business. I'm a big proponent of having your kids be a part of the business. Not so much an entitled factor. I work for my dad, and he has a sheet metal manufacturing company, commercial. So we did like all the Walmarts and HEBs and hospitals. So we did big work. And I was out in the shop, and I was out on the roofs, and I was cutting metal, and I was welding metal, and I was the only girl doing it. But I started out on the shop, before I went into the office. And I think it's important for your children to understand that business, because they understand what showing up is at that point. And they understand it's not work. It's something that is a passion. Mom and dad enjoy it, or whatever the case is. So I'm a big proponent for having kids in the business, but not being a direct report to you as have them report to your other managers. Have somebody else deal with them is basically what I get at. So that way they can understand what's going on. But it's little bits like that. It's little pieces like that. It's understanding tax law. It's understanding the codification, the accounting codification, and how things benefit you in the long run. Because it's not just what I'm going to get after taxes this year, but also what can I do that's going to benefit me and generate my wealth and create my wealth and maximize my wealth. And so when we start getting that, we start pounding it into somebody's head, this is the thought process. That's when the research part steps in, and it's just simple as Googling it sometimes. And that just, you don't have to know it. You don't have to be an expert in it. But if you have just the general idea of it, when you sit down at the table, who's an expert, when you sit down at the table with a CPA or a tax professional or an attorney who's doing your estate planning, they're going to realize, oh, you know a little bit. Okay, so let's really have this robust conversation. And that allows you to know whether or not somebody's really working in your true interest or not. So
yeah.
It's a thought process, and it's a lot of talking and working it out. And sometimes we got to present it 2, 3, 4 different ways, but you'll get to it. And that's the point. And it's just not, removing the fear, just remove the fear. There are no stupid questions when it comes to asking questions, especially when you're truly wanting to learn it. So.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. Now, the next question becomes, what is your vision for your clients? Because I know in my business, that's something I believe is truly powerful. Having a vision for clients that they typically can't even see for themselves. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, for my clients, I know that one of the core reasons why they come to us in our business is because they're typically struggling with getting clients, making any money in their business. They really genuinely come from a place of really wanting to help and serve others, but they're just not sure what to do to get clients, get paid, basically get paid for the help that they're offering. So my vision for them is to have them come from a place of they could use that passion that they have and get paid good fees for it, to where they could just get paid for what they know, the knowledge that they have, and do that in a sense in a not by not having to have a full-time job. They could literally design a life just with that,
Mm-hmm.
making money as a coach and consultant. So if your clients, as you work with them, what's that vision that you have for them in terms of a bigger picture?
So I start anytime I do an intake form with them, and I ask them, what is it that you want to accomplish? What do you see? How do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? Whether it's owning multiple businesses, whether it's I've started a book, because you can want something for someone and they may not want that completely. And sometimes when we start this process, they realize that there's a lot more work that they have to do on themselves. And it changes things. It really does. So the ultimate goal at the end of it is for them to really understand what their numbers stand out, like what their business truly is. Because once you have that, because I've had it to where in the last company I worked with, the first 3 months, they were like, we're going to do this. And then after the first 3 months, after the first 3 assessments, they were like, we need to change our goals. We need to, we didn't realize this is where we really were at. And so it's a good way to wake up. And it really, the goals that I have for my clients is that I want them to realize their business is supposed to outlive them. So let's create an effective, efficient machine that can be streamlined, that you can eventually either pass down to your children, or you get those big corporate dollars and they come looking for you and they want to buy you out. And then you get to have that nice little life. But then it's also, what else can we do on the side? How else can we protect you? How else are we increasing your wealth? How else are we increasing your legacy? Because sometimes coaches and consultants, sometimes they don't talk about that, or they don't ask them that. And I genuinely do care about them. I genuinely do want to see them succeed and be the best version of them. And it's one of those that I've had clients where I told them, I don't think you and I are going to be a good fit, because I'm not here to take orders from you. I'm here to be working beside you. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those, if you don't want to do the work, I'm not going to do the work for you. I'm here to help lead you and guide you. And so my end goal for a lot of my clients is for them to realize the leader that they really were, because I've worked with people who were just really operationally strong with their business, and they were good, but they failed in making decisions. They failed to show up for their employees, but their employees really liked them, so they never really left. And it's great, but that's kind of, you start developing a toxic culture within your organization. People don't realize that. They just realize, well, I've never made that decision before and they've never told me anything, so I'm not going to do it. Well, no, it's about, let's make you that leader, because they want you to make that decision for them. They want you to make that, we're going to do this today. Or, you know what, we're going to change production. We're going to do this. And so you get a feel for your clients when you first start working with them. And so for me, it's for them to really be that strong leader and to really grab a hold of their business and to make it to the level that they want it to. But it's on everybody's individualized. Everybody's on their own terms. So I can't force them to, if they're happy with only making 2, 3, 5 million a year, and I think you can do 50 million, if they don't want to do it, you can't force them to do it. But at least give them the pathway to show them how they can get to that.
Yeah, awesome. So. Yeah. Now, question, if someone wanted to learn more about your services and find out more about you, what's the best way to reach out?
So I'm very active on Facebook and on Instagram. And my business name is Dynamite Business Coach. So you can either look for my name or Dynamite Business Coach. My initials are TNT. So my middle name is Nicole, Tanya Thirlwall. And so I was just, so that's how Dynamite came out about. And I was like, oh, we could be Dynamite Business Coach. So that's how that came about. So that's the name of the story. But yeah, it's, you know, and it's catchy and it's funny. And people, when they realize, oh, those are her initials, it just sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just the best way you can find me. You'll find my website there. You can email me directly. You know, my phone's always something I'm pretty responsive pretty quickly. If I don't respond back, I'll text you and say, hey, can we talk around this time? But I'm pretty quick to respond and get back to people, or you can send me an email, visit me on my website, shoot me a DM wherever you're at. I'm accessible. So I do shut off at a certain time though, because I do have kiddos that I like to spend time with. But, but yeah, but I'm accessible. So you can definitely find me on Facebook for sure.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Because when I saw the name of your company on my the calendar for this interview, it's like, damn, that's very interesting. But I had no idea it was because of your initials TNT. Now
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, guys. So hey, thank you so much for tuning in. And with Tanya, all of the as far as how to contact her. So if you're watching this video, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, I'll have all the links to contact her directly, just in case you have any questions about what she talked about today, and in case you want to kind of reach out to her. Okay. So, well, Tanya, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for making the time to attend this interview. Really appreciate it. And do you have any final thoughts before we sign off here?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it. I've seen a couple of your interviews, and I think what you do is also very phenomenal. I like to connect with people who come from a place of abundance and gratitude, and that, you know, you really do embody that. So you do a great job. So thank you so much for extending the invite to me today. I appreciate it.
Awesome, Tanya. Well, hey, great being great chatting here today, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
Definitely. Take care.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.